In this video, I'm going to talk about 5 scenarios for which subject matter experts would still fail job interviews. The first thing I'd like to talk about here would be arrogance. So some of you come across as arrogant in job interviews, and could be many reasons underlying this perceived behavior, but the most common of them is when you do not prepare for a job interview at all, and basically you say it as it is during a job interview. And to make an extreme here, even if you're a highly technical individual and you've never had to interview and you've been working remotely for the past 10 years, then interviewing isn't something that will come in too naturally for you. Or another classic scenario would be when you half prep a job interview, your answers will not sound too natural, right? And some people have a hard time talking about a time when they had a conflict with someone else, and I believe this is quite easy to understand how you could really come across as arrogant. But long story short, this is something you would want to take seriously, the way you sell yourself, but even the way you communicate during a job interview might come across differently than what you expect, right? The second scenario I'd like to talk about here is some people fail job interviews for the simple reason that they cannot handle pressure during these very formal encounters, in my opinion. And stress tests could come in various shapes and forms. Probably the most common of them would be the backbone test, which is quite often employed in high-performing companies, but it could be, I recently had someone who suffered from ADHD, so especially in such a scenario, you know that you would want to pay particular attention of how you handle this type of interview stress or interview pressure. So again, you could be perfectly qualified for the role that you're applying for, but if you cannot handle pressure, or maybe you're too agreeable for the sake of social cohesion, it will not play to your advantage for the purpose of a job interview, right? The third thing I'd like to talk about here, just quickly, clarity of thought. So this came as a little bit as a surprise to me, that I work with some people with some amazing CVs applying for sales roles, and I simply could not understand what they were selling themselves on using their interview answers during our role-play sessions, right? So, and by this I don't mean I couldn't understand their English. So it's not about English speaking skills, but rather, selling yourself and communicating efficiently, scoring well on clarity of thought, communicating your idea in such a way that you are perceived as a subject matter expert or as an expertly qualified candidate that I assume you are, right? Number 4 here, and this is another classic one, I previously touched on this, is interpersonal skills. So if you are someone who has a hard time selling your ideas and convincing people of your ideas being the best, or you cannot stand up in meetings to your own ideas, then you should be particularly careful at this advice and building your interpersonal skills. I've had people prepared for months for job interviews. They were able to answer any question you could throw at them, but simply, interpersonal skills were never their strength, and therefore in a job interview with a little bit of pressure, they simply failed with this regard, right? Also, interpersonal skills is something that remote workers will usually lack, right? So if you haven't been working in an office setting or in a face-to-face setting, then interpersonal skills will usually not be your strength, and would be something that you definitely like to take more seriously, even nowadays, because there's a back to office type of trend, right? And number 5, definitely not least, would be reactiveness. So basically, you hurry to answer interview questions, and you say something dumb. Okay, now it's quite common that for more senior roles you say something dumb, you do a monumental mistake, and you fail your job interview. Now, I'd like to explain a little bit that I would not encourage you to maybe slow down and to take your time always to answer interview questions, because I find that this reactiveness is sometimes for a good purpose, to sound more convincing and trying to bias the interviewer towards you. However, you should be aware that it is common for people to make these sort of mistakes, right? For example, I had someone recently who simply gave me their elevator pitch, and they tried to sound as convincing as possible, and they simply said they had this achievement, and then just threw a sentence in there, which was a major failure, but we can discuss about this later, stuff like that. So it's not to your advantage when you say something dumb in a job interview. And if you say something along the lines, yeah, but my previous company culture was terrible. We were only looking for the margins, and we couldn't care less about customers. Just between us, just small talk. These are types of details which could make or break the interview performance for you. So beware about reactiveness, right? And I will just close by saying that this advice I'm giving you right now primarily applies to final interview rounds, because screening rounds are notoriously just a gamble, so you shouldn't take this too seriously. But preparing a final interview round with a high-performing company, I believe these 5 key points is something you should take seriously. So I hope you found this useful, and thank you very much for watching.